Hi, year 9, your title for today is Angles at a Point on a Straight Line. So before we go into angles that are next to each other on a straight line, I'm just going to look at some notation which you may see, which if you don't understand it, you're not going to be able to answer questions. So it's worth looking into different ways you might be asked to find this angle, for example. So one way that you could be asked it is, can you find angle ABC? Because the angle is created at this middle letter here. So A to B to C creates this angle, which you're then being asked to find. So one way you might be asked it is to find angle ABC. Just think of it as, right, the one nearest that letter is the one I'm trying to find. Another way you might be asked for it is just B and then a little sort of angle sign over it, so like an arrow over the top of it. Another way they could ask for it is a little picture of an angle, then ABC. So find, might say that, or any of these could just say find in front of them. So there's one way, two way, three way. Another way is find and a little arrow on top of it, so denoting where the angle is. And yeah, that's pretty much all the ways. So just know that when it's given as these three letters here, think, right, if I travelled from A to B to C, where would that angle be made? So A to B to C, that angle's made at B there. Okay, there's your notation. So the fact that we need to know, and we should all know from previous years at Hayes and primary school, is that angles that are next to each other on a straight line always equal 180 degrees. So let's say I measured this and I measured this angle here, they would equal 180 degrees. If my drawing is a little bit inaccurate because I haven't used a ruler, but say I called this angle A and this angle B, then A plus B will always equal 180 degrees. Don't forget your degree sign there as well. Another way of saying angles next to each other, if you want to shorten this down a bit, is adjacent angles on a straight line. Adjacent literally just means next to each other. So if I said I'm adjacent to whoever's next to me, I'll be standing like sort of shoulder to shoulder with them. Adjacent angles on a straight line add up to 180 degrees, or always equal 180 degrees. It's just another way of saying it. So make sure you get whichever definition you prefer down in your book. You may be used to the definition of angles on a straight line equal 180 degrees, but there are some problems with that, and I'll show you some non-examples. I think it's important to get that they have to be next to each other. So one angle here, it has to be next to the other one, adjacent to it, right next to it. And then our title was at a point, so this is our point here. Right, I'm just going to show you some non-examples then. So these are your examples and non-examples. What I'd like you to do is just go through them, and all you need to write in your book is one, and then say if you think it is an example of angles, adjacent angles on a straight line equaling 180 degrees, or if it is a non-example. So all you need to write in your book is one, example, or if you think it's a non-example, non-example. So do you think the angles on that line equal 180 degrees. Is it an example? Is it a non-example of our fact that we know? So pause the video, have a go at it, and then I'll go through it now. So 1, we can see that they are next to each other, they're on a straight line, they're at a point, so that is an example. I'll just put E. 2, they are next to each other, but this is not a straight line. It goes bent like that, so we would need the line to carry on for it to be a straight line, so that is a non-example. I'm just going to put any. 3, straight line, they are angles next to each other. We usually denote a right angle with a little square, so that is an example. They are both 90-degree angles. Okay, this time we've got 2 angles on a straight line. So angles on a straight line, we know that from previous learnings we might be like angles on a straight line add to 180, but this is a non-example. Why do you think that might be? Well, it's because they're not adjacent to each other, they're not right next to each other. If I can draw in so that we have an example with this angle here, the red angle I've drawn, and I, that would be an example. But as it is, it's a non-example. Right, 5, we've got angles on this straight line here. Got a triangle next to it, which is a bit off-putting, but let's just try and stick to what we know. They're next to each other, they're on a straight line at a point, so that is an example. 6, they're next to each other, there's a straight line going down the middle, but it's not just the straight line going down the middle, it needs to be a straight line at the point where they meet here, so it would need to be a straight line looking like that. So that is a non-example because they're not on a straight line. They are on a straight line down the middle, but not meeting at this point. So it would need to be a line like that, or equally it could be a line like that, and then that would equal 180, or that would equal 180, but my drawing's getting a bit messy now. So just know it's a non-example because there's not a straight line there, meaning they're not at 180 degrees. Right, make sure you've marked them in red pen. So there's 3 examples and 3 non-examples. And then what I'd like you to do now is have a look at these questions. So let's just number them for you. And I'd like you to write as many facts as you can about those angles. So for the first one, I can write A plus B equals 180 degrees because they're on a straight line. Could also put B plus A, but we'll just leave it as, you can just have it one way for now. So write as many examples as you can for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sets that equal to 180. So pause the video, have a go at them. If you're not sure what to do, watch me do the next one, then pause it maybe. So question 2, marking it in red pen after having a go at it ourselves. C plus D plus E equals 180 degrees in this case. There's nothing else there that equals 180, so that's the only one I could put. So if you weren't sure before, have a go at question 3, 4, 5, and so on now. If you're still not sure, watch me do this, and then see if you can have a go at 4, 5, 6, 7. So question 3, marking whatever you've done in red pen, I can say F plus G equals 180 degrees, because they're adjacent on a straight line at a point. And H plus K equals 180 degrees. Okay, make sure you're having a go at 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's see what other facts we can get out of this. So P plus T would equal 180 degrees. M plus N would equal 180 degrees. And there's no other sets there that would equal 180 degrees. Because these two are adjacent to each other, P and T, and M and N are adjacent to each other, next to each other. Right, question 5. So it's a bit tricky here, but this is not a straight line, but this one is. So I could say that Z and W, because they're adjacent on that straight line, equal 180. I can say X and Y equal 180 as well, but I can't say anything about W and X because that's not a straight line, so it's bent here. And I can't say anything about Z and Y, because again that line's bent, it's not a straight line. Okay, question 6. I can say n plus j equals 180 degrees. Don't forget your degree sign. I could say j plus k equals 180 degrees. I could say k plus m equals 180 degrees. Because they're on this straight line next to each other at a point. And again, the difference between 5 and 6 is that you've got two straight lines here. And then m plus n equals 180 degrees. And then that's all I can say about them. So because the difference between 5 and 6 is that I've got two straight lines, so there's lots of angles there on straight lines, so I can get 4 angle facts out of that. Question 7, there's loads of them that you could say for here. I'm just going to label a few then. So on this straight line, at this point, I can see A plus B plus C would equal 180 degrees. If I go around one further, then on this straight line, I can see B plus C plus D equals 180 degrees. And then I could keep going around like that. Another one I could say is D plus E plus F equals 180 degrees. E plus F plus A. Anything where there's going to be 3 angles that are adjacent to each other on a straight line at that point, then they equal 180 degrees. I can't say F, E and B, because notice they're on together, they're all on this like bent line here, or E, F, A, B. Then I can't say that because it's not all on a straight line, it's bent there. So that's not all of them that I've listed, but there's quite a few of them for you to get an idea. Right, next questions that I'd like you to have a go at are some true or false statements. So all you need to do is just say whether you think that the statements, whoops, not T, 3, 4, 5, 6, whether you think the statements are true or false. So all you need to put is T or F. Have a go at them, pause the video, and then I'll go through them now so you can mark in red pen. 1 is true, adjacent on a point, at a point on a straight line. 2 is false, because it's not a straight line. 3 is true, because it's on a straight line at a point adjacent to each other. False, because notice G and H are not adjacent to each other. They're on a straight line, they're at a point, but not adjacent. 5 is true, we've just got 3 angles here that are all adjacent on a straight line at a point. 6 is false, because notice again they're not adjacent to each other and they're not meeting at one point. Okay, well done for having a go at that. Next question. So there's just a few more. This time we've got a bit more of a reasoning behind it. Like, can you apply your knowledge to say, are these lines straight? Explain your answer. So let's think, what do I know about straight lines? I know that angles adjacent to each other at a point should equal 180 degrees. So if these add to 180, then I know that must be a straight line. So let's see, 139 add 42. I can see that equals 1 straight away. So they're 181 degrees, which is very, very close to 180 because it's not bang on. CD, so C to D, that's how we would say this straight line. CD is not straight because, let's use this notation, let's call this point out here E, because C, and we'd need to call this point here E, let's call it B, because CBE, notice this could be, this creates this angle, CBE plus DBE is not equal to, that's a not equal sign, 180 degrees. It equals 181, meaning that it's just slightly off of being a straight line. Let's check this one then. I'm just going to label these E, let's call this D, and this E, F, G. Need to practice my alphabet, I think. So let's add them together, and we know what we're looking for. If I add them together and they add to 180, they should be a straight line. 9 and 8 is 7, carry the 1 is 1, carry an extra 1. Okay, so these add up to 180 degrees. So I can say that EF is a straight line. So I've answered that bit of the question. Are these lines straight? Explain. Because EDG plus FDG. Notice that angle is in the middle there. Another way you might draw it is that little hat on top of it is equal to 180 degrees. So there's our explanation, and we'll get the full marks for that. Right, final thing I'd like you to have a go at. Well done for all your hard work today so far. Final lot of questions is, can you find the missing angle? So let's call this question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So in your book, just have a go at finding the missing angle there. Pause the video and then I'll go through it now. So get your red pen out ready to mark. The working that I should show for this is, I know that these are angles on a straight line at a point adjacent to each other. So 180 minus 50 equals 130 degrees, which is what this angle here is. So I found that missing angle there. 2, need to do 180, take away 120 because they're adjacent angles at a point on a straight line. So that is 60 degrees. Don't forget your degree sign to finish off the question. You can leave them out in your working, but make sure your final answer gives a unit of degrees. Okay, here we can almost ignore this sort of triangle on the left here and notice that this is an angle on a straight line, adjacent angles on a straight line at a point. So 180 minus 21 is equal to 159 degrees. Quick way to do that, take away 20, which is 160, take away another 1. Okay, now for 4, 180 minus 112 is equal to, well, if I take away 110, then I get 70, take away an extra 2, then I get 68 degrees. Question 5. So all of these angles are adjacent to each other. So I know that they must add to 180. So if I do 180, take away the other 2, I'll be left with what B is. So 180 take away 30 is 150. Take away another 50 is 100 degrees. So B is 100 degrees. Now 6, sorry. Can see there's a straight line going through here. So I can't consider, a misconception here might be that all of these angles, 30, B and C, add to 180. But I can see from my drawing on this red here that that's not a straight line. Look, it's bent. So I can't use my fact about 180 degrees there. But I can see that this is a straight line here. So 30 is adjacent to B. So 180 take away 30 should get me what B is, which is 150 degrees. So I know that this is 150. And then the other straight line that I can see here is running through here. So B and C add to 180. So 180 minus 150 should get me what C is, which is 30 degrees. So this one is actually the same as this one, and we'll be looking more into that tomorrow. Tomorrow. Right, really well done for all your hard work today. That's angles on a straight line at a point that are next to each other, or adjacent angles on a straight line at a point. Have a great rest of your day.